Mabuhay, this is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. The video today is called Who Has a Harder Time with the Single Life? Now, just recently I did a video on who does best living single, and then today we'll talk about who has a harder time with the single life. This comes from a recent online article on Psychology Today from someone named Bella DiPaolo, PhD. So I can relate to this one. Maybe you can too. Please leave comments. Either way, who has a harder time with single life? According to the researchers, first one, people who buy into ideologies that insist that being married or coupled is the normal, natural, and superior way to be. So if you grew up that way or you taught yourself that way, then you're going to have a harder time being single because, like me, you're going to feel like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not fulfilling your calling and you're missing out because you just think like, well, it's just wrong for me to be single. I need to have a wife. What am I going to do being single? And I want my wife to be my best friend. And I don't like not being sexually active, so I want to get married. But this is talking about it is normal for a lot of reasons. And superior way to be, well, that will depend on, to me, as I've done videos before, whether you have the gift of singleness, which means you can be single. It means living a life without marriage, without intercourse, without sex, without children. And few people are called to do that, usually for service in the kingdom of God. But most people, the default is marriage. So while people are seemingly putting off or foregoing marriage now, that's just wrong. It's not normal. I don't think that will ever be normal. Certainly, hopefully not. So the second reason there, who has a harder time with being single, and by the way, I was single until I was 53. That's right, 53. So I suffered through a lot to get here. So I really feel for people that have a harder time being single too. People who believe in traditional norms about gender and parenting. Those people, researchers say, have a harder time with being single. To them, married is just, being paired up is just normal. Number three, people who are afraid of being single. Right? That kind of makes sense. People who have a harder time with singleness are people who are afraid of it. What would they be afraid of? Well, what was I afraid of? I mean, the aloneness part, not having somebody to confide in that I'm living with all the time, every day, a confidant, a companion, of course, the sex. It's just the right thing to do, That goes back to the Bible, Genesis 1, Genesis 2. It's not good that the man should be alone. God says, I will make a helper suitable for him, which was Eve for Adam. God instituted marriage right away from the beginning. And having children, be fruitful and multiply, as being the norm. But, afraid of long-term loneliness, afraid of, sexual frustration. That's frustrating. Can also get you in a lot of trouble. Just feeling abnormal and having to explain yourself all the time. Well, I don't know why I'm single. I don't know. You hear it all the time. Well, how come you haven't found somebody yet? Well, what do they want us to say? So there are some fears of being single that I admit to. I'd much rather be married. I've been married for almost 8 years now to my wife. I'm married in the Philippines. 4, who has a harder time with single life. People who really want to be romantically partnered. I mean, that seems like a good thing to me. I don't know what they mean by romantically here. If it's limited just to the sexual relationship, possibly that's what they're talking about. Romance, kind of a strange word. If it's talking about emotional feelings and attachment and the intercourse and all of those things, well, sure, that's a wonderful thing to desire, and it doesn't go that way all the time. Nothing in marriage does. There's a lot of ebb and flow, and it's a marathon, and sometimes a bit of a roller coaster ride. But number 4 then was people who really want to be romantically partnered. And by the way, statistics still say that married people have more sex than those who are not married. Number 5, people who have a hard time with being single, or a harder time with the single life, is people who are divorced. And it's easy to see why. They've been burned, maybe financially, emotionally scarred, terrible experience, and they're not going to risk doing it again. And that's a tough decision to make. I know people's lives have been shattered through divorce, and you break up something like a marriage, it's going to happen. It's going to hurt. And so they might not be willing to jump in again, although that would mean being single and alone and everything that goes with that, and without everything that goes with having a good marriage, which you always have to work at. Number 6, people who don't have much social support have a harder time with the single life. And hopefully that's not because they're antisociable or unsociable, because marriage is very much a social endeavor, and you're going to have a lot of communicating and a lot of openness and hearing things that we don't agree with, or maybe we find unfair, but it's a very intimate experience and a very social one. And I guess the more social experience, the better, the easier entry into marriage is. I don't know. You want to be out there. You want to be, going places where people are, and involving yourself with others. And yeah, as the older you get, the fewer friends you might have, but it helps to have a friend, social support. I had mentors that I sought out when I was single for many years. I just needed that kind of support. I might have had a friend for going places or to ball games, but I also needed my pastor or elder or somebody to help, keep me from going off the rails, when things were really tough. Number 7, people who have an anxious attachment style. I don't know what that is. I've never heard of it before, so I'm not going to comment much more in my last couple of minutes that I have. But people who have an anxious attachment style, that was number 7. Number 8, people who have a high desire for sex, but few partnered sexual experiences. And that goes without saying. Number 9, people who feel pressured to couple or marry by family members have a harder time being single. Sometimes I wish I had gotten more pressure from others growing up, and I have a feeling there's less pressure these days on others to get married from family members and friends, because, there are almost exactly as many unmarried single people as there are married people. And because that's been dropping. Marriage rates have been dropping. Singleness has been going up. And on Love Beyond the Sea, I want to talk about the benefits of marriage. I was single for way too long. Between relationships, you can check the Guinness Book of World Records to confirm that. It'll talk about Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. So not much pressure from home. And sometimes I feel like I'm trying to put a little pressure on people, because I know society is telling them it's better off to be single. I believe for most people they're better off being married. They just need to know how and what to expect and how to prepare for that. The 10th reason, cough has been getting better, believe it or not. 10, people who experience even more than the usual dose of singleism, the stereotyping, stigmatizing, and marginalization of single people, and the discrimination against them. Yeah, I kind of felt that at times. You go to a restaurant or any place to eat, and they seem that they'll find the place the furthest away from humanity to put you, as if you go in there with leprosy or something. I always thought that was because I was single. I remember one time I said, "Don't put me over there. Put me over there where there's some people." So that's a list of some things that people who have a harder time being single. Leave your comments here, and I do try to help people want to get married and what it's like to be married to a woman from the Philippines. So stay tuned for more videos on Love Beyond the Sea.